Yeah, see that? Escape is futile in Return Fire. In fact, it's almost as futile as the 3DO, the ill-fated console to which Return Fire was originally released. As with many other games too good to die in the trenches with the 3DO, Return Fire would retreat to other battlefields, so to speak. It was ported to the original PlayStation in 1996, just a year after its 3DO debut. We're obviously playing that version here, sent to us by our good friend Dean from California. Thanks for the big freaking box of violent games, Dean. We'll be getting to them over the next week or so here on Undertow, but we wanted to start here. It just felt right, like our American duty. That's right, Undertoads. Why bomb buildings and run over people in video games when you can do it in real life? Jeez, people get bent out of shape over Mortal Kombat. Return Fire is a top-down tank shooter, another step on an evolutionary line that goes back almost 40 years now to games like Tank in the arcades and even Combat for the Atari 2600. You control military vehicles from a bird's-eye view, firing weapons at angles at enemy vehicles, and in this case, playing what basically amounts to capture the flag. Or capture the escapees in your tank and run them over. Honestly, that squish, probably the coolest thing about Return Fire. You have 4 vehicles to choose from in Return Fire, each with its own strengths. And to carry out each mission, you have to swap between those vehicles to most effectively dispose of your enemies and clear a path to the flag. There's probably a bit of strategy in choosing vehicles to use and approaching your objective, but, well, I'm not one for strategy or planning. I typically just give the area unprepared flyovers in my helicopter while blindly carpet bombing my foes into the Stone Age. And once I get tired of senselessly chasing unarmed men into the sea simply to expedite their inevitable fate, that's when I send in some tanks to run over any remaining cowards, like taking a boot to a cockroach. My strategy is stick with what works, even when it doesn't. Obviously, I'm not great at Return Fire, but it is fun. I've never been a real fan of the controls these kind of games employ. Up actually moves in the direction the vehicle is facing, not up directionally, which has always driven me crazy. But once you get used to that, it's not terrible. Clunky, maybe, and even frustrating at times, sure, but not terrible. So you have tanks, helicopters, rocket-launching armored vehicles, which, where do you get those? And also basic jeeps. And again, the fun is in using the right vehicle in the right situation. You want to use the jeep to grab that flag and take it back to your base, which brings me to something else I really like about this game. The music is just awesome. Actually, the presentation in general is pretty good. It's fittingly goofy. The levels have funny names like Cakewalk, for example, and after completing each level, you see an old video clip. I mean, I'm not exactly a Yankees fan, but you gotta respect Lou Gehrig. Return Fire is a pretty cool game, very lighthearted, very silly, but very fun. It's not a great single-player game, but it will always be remembered for its fantastic multiplayer. In fact, a lot of people consider this one of the 3DO's very best games for that alone, and it's still worth checking out on the PSX. Ooh, I mean, even 15 years later, that sounds awesome.